The Russian government has not yet released an official economic outlook since the start of Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine in late February. However, insider information within the country's economic ministry says that the agency predicts a more optimistic 8% decline in GDP this year. Russia will run out of money in the next 18 months, and that's the best-case scenario. Vladimir Putin has been concealing Russia's economic disaster from the West. He's been manipulating currency rates, hiding key economic statistics. Russia's economy is collapsing as exports to the sanctioned country plummet in the face of President Vladimir Putin's ongoing, unprovoked war in Ukraine. The economy is imploding. Forecasted GDP collapse of -30% by end 2022. Exports from 20 countries to Russia were down 50% in April, compared to the same time a year prior. But monthly exports from Russia to other countries were up 64% in April, compared to the same time a year prior, as oil and gas sales become a bigger part of Moscow's revenue. The country's account surpluses were massive, which meant Russia was exporting far more than it was importing. Russia stopped publishing its trade data after invading Ukraine in late February, so the data was compiled using 20 of the country's top trading partners. The Observatory of Economic Complexity said Russia's top trading partners include China and Germany. Since the invasion, European and Western countries have unveiled a slew of sanctions packages aimed at crippling Russia's economy. Ukraine's government has routinely lobbied for harsher sanctions and led a push to try to redirect European Union countries away from Russian gas and oil, a main source of Moscow's federal revenue. Sooner or later, the entire world is going to wake up to Russia's terrifying crisis. Although Russia may appear to be in a strong situation militarily, the country's economy is imploding. Subtle but shocking leaks have shown that the entire Russian economy is about to fall apart. Because of Western sanctions, $600 billion of corporate activity has flowed out of Russia. This effectively disintegrates 30 years of foreign investment since the fall of the Soviet Union. To give you context as to how severe this is, Russia's GDP only sits at $1.4 trillion. 42% of Russia's GDP has flowed out of the country almost overnight. Over 1,000 companies have stopped doing business in Russia since the Ukraine invasion. Russia claims that 12 to 15% of direct employment has been lost from sanctions. Using Russia's numbers, the indirect unemployment is estimated to be roughly 35 to 40% of Russia's labor force. This is because one man's spending is another man's income. If 12 to 15% of people suddenly lose their jobs, then they will also stop spending on other products and services. This increases the unemployment rate to 35 to 40% by Russia's own numbers. This news will certainly add to the mounting pressure on Putin, who has been under fire by his own Kremlin officials, who warn of severe economic and political repercussions of his special military operation. The ruble, Russia's currency, might appear to hold strong, but the waves of economic sanctions from the United States and its allies are definitely taking effect. Russia is an export-oriented economy, meaning that a large part of the government's revenue comes from the goods it sells to its trade partners. With a flurry of economic sanctions, goods from Russia have lost a significant part of its clientele, particularly in Europe. Europe and Russia have uneasy economic codependency that was growing before the attack on Ukraine. European countries such as Germany and Hungary are highly dependent on oil imports to fuel their thirsty economies. On the other hand, Russia provides them with oil in exchange for much-wanted revenue, which funds the Putin regime. However, with the outcry over the atrocities in Ukraine and the West taking a stand against Moscow, Russian oil is slowly losing its customers. The United States and Britain were the first ones to ban Russian oil and other Russian imports from Russia, but they were not that significant trading partners to begin with. However, the big development is that Europe, which buys around half of Russia's oil, now plans to prohibit such imports into the continent. With economic sanctions hurting Russian exports and denying it imported goods and an estimate of $900 million a day spent on the war in Ukraine, Russia is bleeding out rapidly and trying to sustain not only the war effort but its economy at home. In a recent meeting, the G7 countries Canada, France, Italy, Japan, Germany, Britain, and the US have agreed to release another round of sanctions against Moscow, this time targeting Russian media and finance. The channel named the Moscow TV frequently uncovers the secrets behind Russia's closed doors. As a citizen of Russia, he's noticed that plenty of businesses are dying off. Even the stores that are still open have little to no activity because of low consumer activity. The vast majority of stores have closed down, so there's simply nothing to purchase for consumers. When it comes to the products that still remain, prices have skyrocketed to new heights. No matter what Putin tells you, the situation is clear: consumer spending has fallen by a drastic amount. Putin has been deceiving the West about the Russian economy by manipulating economic data. Positive analyses on Russia's economy have proliferated over the past few months. Most of them detail how Russia's economy has withstood the pain of sanctions. However, they all have one critical flaw. All of them rely on the Russian government themselves. Putin has been cherry-picking data and hiding crucial economic statistics from the public. Based on the past few centuries of ruthless dictators, we know it's completely nonsensical to trust propaganda from a country at war. According to Sonnenfeld's research, it won't be long before everyone finds out about Russia's embarrassing situation. No matter what Putin says, Russian citizens know that the economy is doomed. In a democratic country, citizens would simply vote on a change in economic policy or protest about political mismanagement. The problem is that Russia does not allow free speech. After anti-war protests broke out following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, almost 13,000 protesters were arrested. Many protesters received criminal cases.